Hello and welcome to episode 45 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet in my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is March 23rd, 2020. I'm sorry if you can hear the noise in the background, but they're renovating the apartment upstairs. So there's nothing I can do about that. Sorry about that. Today I am wearing a loop shawl or a loop scarf, that is knit out of Noro yarn. I guess most of you will know Noro. He's a Japanese yarn dyer who has a very special sense of color and who likes to put very interesting colors together. And this loop was knit out of one ball of his yarn Cleopatra. And that's the Japanese way of saying Cleopatra. And these are 100-gram balls as far as I remember, and they're quite big and the yarn is quite thick. So yeah, you can do the whole thing with one ball of yarn. So I started this with a provisional cast on, knit the scarf and then sewed the ends together. I don't even remember where. I sewed it together using Kitchener stitch. Oh, this is the bit where I sewed it. But I think it's not very obvious. And it's a very nice pattern. It's out of a Noro magazine. I forgot to bring it, but if you click on the link to my Ravelry page underneath the video, you can have a look at the pattern and the magazine that it was in. The pattern is called Mana by Jane Ellison. So it's a kind of lace pattern, and it looks nice on both sides, I think. So I tend to think of this as the right side. It has the more pronounced pattern, but that side is also quite nice. So no matter how you wear the loop, it always looks nice. So that's the loop for today, and today's pullover is quite old. I created the Ravelry page in 2011, but I think the pullover is probably a bit older than that. Back then I didn't really put everything into Ravelry, and at some point I tried to create project pages for many of the projects I did before. So I think the pullover itself is older than the Ravelry page. And I knit this pullover out of 6 squares. So I knit squares. I don't quite remember where I got the pattern from, but it's kind of like a doily or tablecloth pattern. And I knit 6 squares and I sewed them together with Kitchener stitch. I added some ribbing underneath the front and back, and it's a bit of an unusual shape, and it's a bit difficult to wear a jacket on top of it because the sleeves are so wide, but I quite like it. And I remember I wanted to try a rather rustic and a bit thicker yarn to combine that with a lace pattern, and I think it's quite interesting. I really like it. And some time after I knit the pullover, I bought a book by Nicky Epstein, and it's called Knitting Block by Block. And the reason I'm showing you the book right now is because when I bought the book and I looked through it, I was quite fascinated to find a pullover that's knit that's designed exactly the same as this pullover. So it's made out of 6 squares that are sewed together, and there's a bit of ribbing underneath the front and back. The pattern is completely different, and but it just goes to show you that sometimes different people have the same idea in a different part of the world. And I know that sometimes there's these problems can arise because somebody designs something and then somebody else designs almost the same thing, and then you might think they stole the idea, and maybe sometimes that happens, that somebody copies somebody else. But I think especially with knitting, where most of the things have been done before, a lot of people can come up with the same idea at different times or at the same time. And I just wanted to show you. So this is the pullover by Nicky Epstein, And as you can see, it's a completely different pattern. It's a cable pattern and not a lace pattern, but the design of the pullover is the same. It's 2 squares for the sleeves, 1 square for the front, 1 for the back, and another 2 squares for the other arm. And you have the ribbing underneath the squares. And yeah, I think that's a nice pullover. And because the book contains loads and loads of knitted squares, you could do the same pullover with any of the patterns in the book, and you'd come up with loads. You can come up with loads of different pullovers just with the same shape. Yeah, so these are the things I'm wearing today. Put this back on. That's it. So what have I finished last week? I finished my Rocksolid socks, and that's my only finished object for this week. But I had to finish these because I had to wear them last Saturday, because last Saturday was March 21st, and that was Down Syndrome Day, International Down Syndrome Day. So everybody was called to wear different socks just to focus on Down syndrome and on being different and being special. I am very happy with how the socks turned out. They fit really well. And even though I had to stay home last Saturday, because we all had to stay home because of the corona pandemic that's going on at the moment, I wore them the whole day at home, and I took pictures of them and posted them on Instagram. And yeah, so these are my Rocksolid socks. It's a fantastic pattern by Kino Knits, and it's really well written. It's a very interesting heel solution, and I love the knitted on I-cord that's part of these socks. They're really, really funny, and I love the bright colors. So yeah, I could see myself knitting the same pattern with different colors all the time. So that's my finished object of the week, and everything else I'm still working on, and I'm going to show you now. So I did some knitting on my stocking. This is the second sock of the second pair of stockings that I'm knitting for friends, and last week I think I was still at the ribbing. I've now started with the stockinette part, and the ribbing was done with this color held double, and the leg and the foot of the sock will be knit with those 2 colors together, and the heel and the toe will be knit holding this color double. So this is how far as far as I got. I'm still at the straight bit, and then there will be some decreases, calf decreases, and then I'll be able to knit the heel at some point. So these are the stockings. Then I continued knitting on my cotton socks. That's an opal yarn with cotton in it. That those colors came out last month, and I'm knitting my own pattern. I'm calling it pattern Renate, and it's a very simple rib-based lace pattern, and I have started the stockinette bit that I'm knitting at the back of the leg before I start the heel. I'm going to knit a Fish Lips Kiss heel. That's my favorite heel at the moment, and because it's a fairly small heel, I very often knit a few centimeters of stockinette stitch before I start the heel, so it looks a bit bigger and it looks a bit nicer. And so this is what I did here. I started the stockinette bit, and so I have to add a few more rows, and then I can knit the heel and then knit the foot. I love the colors. I think they're really, really nice, and it's a really nice yarn, and with the cotton and the lace pattern, I think these will be very nice spring socks or early autumn socks, something like that. And the next pair of socks I'm knitting are my I'm knitting in this color. It's from the subscription abo that I had, but it's also one of the comedy colors that Opal came out with. And I was knitting on the first one last week, and I finished the first sock. I put in a contrast color heel and toe, and I knit these short rows after I finish the heel to make, so they hopefully sit better and they won't slide down at the back of the heel, and can't wait to wear them and to try them out. I've started the second one. I have already folded this upper part and I've knit it together, and now I need to continue knitting down. It's not very far to go until the heel starts, and as usual I just knit the yarn as it comes, so I will have two different looking socks, which I enjoy. Yeah, so that's all the socks I'm knitting at the moment. Already planning the next pair or the next two pairs. I'm always planning to knit socks, and I always have a lot more ideas than time for knitting socks, but for the rest as well, to be honest. Yeah, what else did I knit? I added 2 squares to my memories blanket. I am knitting this. I'm trying to knit 1 square for every project that I finished. I have decided I'm not going to add all those colors in right now. I may add them in one at a time. I will add the green in because I think that this calls for the green color, but I don't think, maybe I will, if I put the green here, I could put the other colors next to it as I come to them. I'll think about that. But the 2 squares that I did put in were, let me see, those 2. So last week I showed you this one. That's a pair of socks I knit for myself. With this yarn I knit a pair of socks for my little nephew. And with this yarn I knit a pair of green socks that I'm going to donate for a German organization who gives green socks to women who suffer from ovarian cancer. And the green that I'm going to knit here, I not only use that for this bit of the Rocksolid socks, but I also knit a pair of green socks that I'm going to donate. So that's my blanket. Then I worked a little bit on the Känguruh trousers by Stephen West. This is the second part of my trousers. Last week I'd already started the first leg, and I continued knitting that, and I still have quite a bit to go, but it is growing. I'm using DK weight sock yarn held double. One color is this beautiful blue and one color is this mix of colors, and held double, they look like this. And I am thinking that for the second leg I'm going to hold this yarn double, just for the fun of it, just to mix things up a little bit. I used a different color for the first part of my trousers, but you'll see that when I put the 2 pieces together. So that's my trousers. Then I worked on the little shawl that I'm knitting, that I'm also knitting as part of the Flatten the Curve knit along by Romy, where you can knit any of Romy's designs. And I am knitting this little shawlette out of her book, new lace knitting, I think it's called. Okay, I'll link the book underneath the video, you can have a look, or you can get the pattern on Ravelry. So I started with this garter bit, and now I'm knitting this knitted on edge in this beautiful lace pattern. And yeah, I finished the first 1, 2, 3. I finished 4 repeats, but the first 3 repeats were knitted in a bit differently from the next repeats. It's a bit difficult to explain, but what you do is the first 3 repeats of the pattern, you don't always knit 1 stitch of the edge with 1 stitch of the shawl, but every now and then you go back to a stitch that you've already added. sounds a bit weird, but what it means is that I have more rows per stitches at the edge of the shawl, but now I'm adding a new stitch every other row. So so this is a bit less knitting per this part of the shawl than here. And I think what it will accomplish is, you can see the kind of ruffle that's going on here. That shows that I have more rows per stitches than I do down here. And I think it'll just mean that the shawl will go round like that a bit more once it's done. Yeah, I like it. I think it looks really nice. I love the color. The yarn is by Wolldackel, a German yarn dyer that I'm linking underneath the video. It's a very nice and bright spring color, and I really enjoy knitting on that. Yeah, so this is, as usual with lace, even though I already like it the way it looks now, it'll look so much nicer once it's blocked. Yeah, so I've added, I think, 1.5 pattern repeats, and I will keep knitting on that. Then what else am I knitting on? Oh, I did a bit of crochet last week. Last week I showed you the next part of the crochet along in the magazine Simply Crochet. We are crocheting on part 3, and I had done the center bit and 2 of those corners, and I have added the other 2 corners. So this is a square now, and I'm crocheting this mostly almost the same colors as the original in the pattern, and this is DK weight sock yarn. It's going to be a nice and warm and rather sturdy either pullover or jacket. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to make yet, but I decided to crochet another one. If you have 10 months to crochet a pullover, I decided you can do 2, and I started crocheting a cotton version. And I'm using a slightly bigger needle. I'm using a 4mm needle for this. I'm using a 3.5mm needle for this. And this is going to be my cotton version of the Carnaby crochet along. And I picked the colors so they go with a pair of trousers that I have, very light cotton trousers that I love to wear in summer. And these are the same colors that are in the trousers. If you want to see a picture of the trousers, you look on my Instagram. I took a photo of this square, and I have the trousers lying in the background, so you can see that. Yeah, so I finished this square, which is part 3, and you can see that the cotton version is slightly bigger, which I wanted, which was intentional. So I did the part 3 in the cotton version, but not part 1 and 2 yet. So that's something that I'll be working on in the coming weeks. And I hope to finish part 1 and 2 before part 4 arrives. So that's the crochet I did last week. Then I continued knitting on the test knit I'm doing for Yuki Knits. And she designed this beautiful 2-color brioche pattern cowl. And I meant to knit a lot more on it, but there was a little hiccup in the pattern, and while she was resolving that, I put it aside and concentrated on some other things I was doing. But now I'm back on track, and the pattern has been clarified, and yeah, I'm good to go, and I hope to do quite a bit on that this week. Yeah, I'll let you know when the pattern is going to be released, because it's so beautiful. Everyone should knit it. This is the inside. It looks also really nice, and I think depending on what I'm wearing, I'll probably wear it like this sometimes and like this other times, and yeah, can't wait to finish it and wear it. The test knit cowl for Yuki Knits. Then on to my jumpers. I am knitting the Raglano pullover as part of a knit along that I'm hosting in my own Ravelry group and my videos. And I'm knitting again DK weight sock yarn by Opal, beautiful blue color. I finished both sleeves and I continued knitting on the front and back. And as you can see, I've added quite a bit. I am at 1, 2, 3, 4. I just started the 5th pattern repeat and I haven't changed the needle size yet. I was thinking of changing the needle size to make sure it's big enough to fit over my hips, but it is already wide enough to fit. So I'm going to finish this pattern repeat with this needle and then I'm going to change. I'm knitting with a 4mm needle at the moment, and when I finish this pattern repeat I will change to a 4.5mm needle. Not because it wouldn't fit otherwise, but because I want to knit it a bit longer, I decided to make it a bit wider at the bottom, so it looks a bit like an A-line, just to make sure I can move and it falls nicely. It drapes nicely. And then I think I will probably add at least 2 pattern repeats, maybe 3, but I think after every pattern repeat I will just try it on and see how it looks and how it fits, and then just make a decision while I'm knitting as to when it's long enough. I have more than enough yarn, that's a good feeling, so I don't have to be careful with that. And I still need to put in the collar, the ribbing. No, it's not going to be a ribbing. I will probably put a garter stitch edge around the neckline, because I did a garter edge on my sleeve because it goes with the pattern, and I want to do the same at the back and front, and then I think it'll just look best if I put garter stitch in here as well. Yeah, so that's my Raglano. I hope to finish it fairly soon, which means we could be starting a new knit along at some point. I haven't quite decided what we're going to knit yet, but at the moment I am thinking a shawl, a lace shawl maybe. But I'll be thinking about it and I'll let you know as soon as I decide, and then I'll let you know when we're going to start. So that's one knit along, and then I'm knitting the Hitofude jacket as part of another knit along that a German podcaster is hosting. And this is this beautiful pattern. It's a Japanese pattern, and it has this fairly simple but very nice lace pattern. And the whole jacket is knit in one piece, and I have almost finished this beginning rectangle, and I will finish the pattern repeat I started, and I think it's wide enough then that if I fold it in half, that it's wide enough for my arm to fit in. This is very, very stretchy, so depending on how I block it, it's going to grow quite a bit. So I think with the next pattern repeat, I should have enough. And then I can undo the provisional cast on, and I can knit the sleeves together, and there'll be an opening that I will have to knit in the round for a bit. And then I can continue with the front and back top down. So I really hope to finish the sleeves in this coming week, and then hopefully next week I can show you either the ribbing that I'm knitting in the round, or maybe I'll have that finished and I can show you how I knit the front and back from the top down. And I am knitting Wollmeise lace in this beautiful, beautiful color that's even more beautiful in real life than it is on camera. Yeah, so that's my Hitofude. And I think I showed you my jacket last week that had a hood that I didn't like, so I cut it off, and I made a video how I cut it off. It's only in German, but if you want to have a look at it, I think it's pretty easy to see what I'm doing, even if you do not understand what I'm saying. And I have started knitting the hood, which I am doing simply by knitting the stitches straight up. And as soon as the hood is high enough, I will just kitchenette the top together and it'll be a hood. So nothing much to see yet. I only knit like, well, I can show you. This is where I cut the hood off, and this is what I've knit so far. So it's only a few rows. This is the ball of yarn that I wound after I undid the hood, and I just have to keep knitting on that. So this is just knitting straight up. Okay, so that's all the project that you already know, that you've seen before. And although I wanted to try and finish as many projects as possible without starting too many new ones, I had to start something new. And that is another knit along, and that's being hosted by Arne and Carlos. Arne and Carlos are two, I think they're Norwegian designers, and they've published quite a few books. They host a podcast on YouTube, and they had to go into quarantine. They're not ill, but because they were traveling when the corona pandemic broke out or started, once they got back home, they were told they have to stay at home for 2 weeks. And they decided if they have to stay home for 2 weeks, they need something to do. And they decided to whip up a quick knit along. It's a mystery knit along, so nobody knows what the end product is going to be. But they are offering a free pattern every day, Monday through Friday. And you can knit those squares or rectangles. And you can either do it as double knitting, or you can just do it as feral or just 2-color knitting. They say both is okay, and it doesn't matter that the squares don't have to have the exact size that theirs have. It's still going to work. And when I saw the pattern and heard about the idea and the quarantine knitting and the fact that we're all knitting together even though everybody stays at home, I really liked the idea. And because I wanted to practice my double knitting abilities, I decided to join in. And as I said, I wanted to do double knitting, so I looked through my leftover yarns I had at home, and this is again DK weight sock yarn. It's one of my favorites at the moment somehow, and this is the first square I knit. And the cast on and the cast off, the bind off, I learned from videos by the Sockmatician, who's who does a lot with double knitting, let's put it that way. And yeah, so I used the blue and orange and green color for the dark color and a white yarn for the light color, and I really like the way it comes out. And the thing is that even though I did it exactly as the pattern says, or because I did whatever, mine are really square. But the ones that Anna and Carlos are knitting, they're not done in the double knitting. They're not squares, so they're a bit higher than wide. I guess that's because the double knitting comes out a bit different, but I must say I really like them, and I really like the fact that they're square. As I don't know what it's going to be in the end. I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing that they're square and not rectangle. Anyway, who cares? So that was the first one. That's last Monday's pattern. And then I started last Tuesday's pattern. And I picked, this is another DK sock yarn. That's not opal, I think. I think it's, could be Regia or Lana Grossa, I'm not sure. And for the other color, I'm using this merino yarn by Rico. So, but it's the same weight, so I thought I can knit them together. And this is last Tuesday's pattern. I finished half the square, and this is the other side. I really enjoy knitting them, and even though I felt a bit crazy for starting yet another project, especially one where you have to knit, where you're supposed to knit one piece every day. There's no way I can do that, but it doesn't matter. It's not a race, and it doesn't matter when I finish. And I'm not quite sure whether the knit along is going to be over after those 2 weeks that the two of them have to be in quarantine. Maybe it'll go on. I don't know how many pieces you will need for the finished object that they're planning. So it's quite interesting and quite mysterious, but I really, really enjoy knitting these. So that's how they look together. Yeah. So yeah, I will just see how many of these I can make in the coming days, and I will let you know. So that's everything I knit and crocheted last week. I hope you have a good time working on your projects, whether you have to stay at home or whether you have to work even more than usual. I hope you're all well and stay healthy, and I wish you all the best, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!